Keep it on the level. Keep it on the level. Keep it on the level. I'm climbing up the. Keep it on the level. Keep it on the level. I'm climbing up the ladder while you bring me up a shovel. I can do this all day. I can do this all night.
All right, Wolfpack fans, I'm back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I'm your host, Evan. Feeling a little bit under the weather this week, so I'll apologize if I randomly sneeze or cough or just generally sound like a jackass more than usual. Holy crap, it's been a crazy couple days. UNC hires Mac Brown. Mac Brown? I mean, their reaction. My initial reaction was like, I just couldn't believe it. It comes down to what I think is the old money making the choices, old money making the decision, the old alumni. And old money is dumb money. I think they're clinging to something in the past. And, man, not only that, it's the staff he's bringing in. I said this on Twitter. He's making his foursome. He's not making a coaching staff. Brings in Greg Robinson, the old Syracuse coach that went 5-37 at Syracuse. He hasn't been coaching since 2015. He was at San Jose State. Man, that is just... I don't know, man. That's just off the wall. Tim Brewster, I get, he's one of the old Mac Brown guys from Texas A&M, tight ends coach. Supposed to be a really good recruiter. But he's just bringing in a bunch of old dudes. I can't believe it. I don't know, man. It's a really strange one. My buddy said this best in our group chat. It's impossible to judge a coaching hire until about 3 or 4 years down the road. But generally, when your rival fan bases are downright giddy about who you hired, you probably aren't starting off on the right foot. That's about it. That's about as good as you can say it. I remember all the stories when he was forced out of Texas. I don't know what happened there. He retired, forced out. He was forced out. And all the stories that came out after him about how it was a rebuilding job, and all the NFL scouts that would go there and said they haven't had a draftable player for like the last 5 years, whatever it was. Just like, that's Texas. Are you kidding me? You just didn't develop them. He just recruited soft guys. You're like, and this is the dude you bring out of the booth? I don't know, man. Really strange. This deal had to have been done for weeks. It would happen too fast. Everybody had to know that this was going to happen. There was too much happened too fast for this not to have been premeditated. It's funny, one of my Carolina friends who, admittedly doesn't pay attention to football season, he said, I'm excited about the pipelines he's going to bring in. We all, in our group chat, we're like, what pipelines? What is he pipelining? Pipelining a bunch of old dudes. Like somebody tweeted at me his shuffleboard team. I was like, I don't know, man. Weird. I don't think it has any impact on our recruiting. Somebody asked me that. I'm sure he'll be able to get some players just because he can talk. But the kids in high school don't know who Mac Brown is. Like, what is he? Yeah, Vince Young won the Heisman. Who? I don't know, man. It's a really really strange move. I'm not concerned about it, and I honestly still, I can't believe it, to be honest. I would love to have been in Dorn's office when those guys found out. Their reaction would have been priceless. Like, we're going to recruit against Mac Brown? Okay. Yeah. It's just such a weird... Here's my other thought about Carolina. And I forgot who tweeted this out. And they were talking about the Carolina brand or whatever. And how they're tied to Jordan. And Carolina leveraged that for the last 15 years. Like the Jordan brand. How many kids these days in high school really even know who Jordan is? Like, does that have any pull? Does that coincide with them not being able to, or not having the draw? I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to think about. Like, they're now really tying themselves to this Jordan brand, but he's just really irrelevant. If it was LeBron, then yeah, hell yeah, everybody would know who it is. Everybody would, you'd be able to pull some talent just because you're the LeBron brand or whatever. But I'm curious what others think about that. It's just something I've been rattling around in my head. Carolina's kind of missed the boat there with that timing. They still have the basketball. I get it. They're still going to get their recruits from the basketball program and whatnot, even though they got their ass kicked last night by Michigan. Anyway, just some of the fan questions. They're all around the same shit, so it's going to be out of order. Kevin Williamson, interested in hearing your take on Mac Brown. UNC people love it, so do NC State people. What will have impact on our recruiting? Yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see it right now. I don't think there'll be much flipping. We'll have the early signing period, which should help. I don't think Mac Brown will be able to flip anybody before then. If anybody holds out, maybe C.J. Clark, right? I mean, he was a Carolina lean or something. I don't know. I just don't see it. I think their program's so far from being relevant that I'm not super concerned. David Stanford also asks, is Mac Brown a good hire for the Heels? I don't know if it's a good hire. My initial reaction is no. I think it's a crazy hire when you have a guy like Satterfield out there, a North Carolina guy, or Mike Houston, who we'll talk about. I mean, there's just so many good options out there, and you're going to go for a super old retread. And I've talked about this before. Why do they keep hiring retreads? And everywhere. Why do these old guys keep getting jobs? There's got to be new, young coaches out there that would do better for your program. And I just think the people that are making decisions are living in the past. They're not really paying attention. I mean, there's some really good coaches out there you could get. Neil Brown out of Troy. He'd be a good hire for them. Satterfield. There's... Oh, crap. My headset died. Hang on. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just a plethora of young coaches out there that they could have gone after and set themselves up better for the future. I mean, if Mac Brown fails now, they're really going to put themselves in a hole. I mean, they're going to be so far behind. Schools like Charlotte and ECU are out there making coaching searches right now. And there's a very real possibility that a school like Charlotte, that's got a very low bar and a whole lot of talent around them, they make the right hire, they're going to elevate themselves to a point where they're going to be more in contention for recruits and exposure than if Carolina just flops bad. And I just don't see any way that they're not going to do it. They have some talent, so he'll be lucky that they have some good players. The Carolina game, I was really impressed with Daz Newsome, I thought, in particular. And I know I've talked about Anthony Ratliff-Williams. Those are two guys that are really good, and they can really play. But yeah, let's talk about that game for a minute. Actually, man, there's so much to talk about. I'm all over the place. But that Carolina game, we won in overtime, and I thought the game was going to be closer than maybe a lot of people expected, or maybe even should have been. One, it's a rivalry game, but Carolina has played a lot of teams close this year, and State just doesn't have that killer mentality. And to be honest, I thought they blew it there for a little while. I thought that third quarter was just a bad performance where you just let them kind of take control of the game when they were really trying to give it to you early and just let you have it. But they they prevailed. Gillespie had a game for the ages. I'm happy for him. I want him to get 1,000. I want him to be successful. Everybody says he's a great kid. I don't know why we haven't had more success dominating games offensively. That's kind of what I've been going back and forth with a couple people. I get the mentality that Doran wants to do. He wants to have a running program, and I get it. When you have 5 guys on the All ACC first team offense, and you just don't seem like it just doesn't feel like you've dominated a game offensively, where you've just been in complete control. We've all seen those games. We've seen those teams that can just score at will. And we just don't seem to have that. And I think that's maybe the mentality of the coaching staff or whatever, but I think that's what all the complaints are coming from State fans. Like, you have all this talent, you should be able to just impose your will on teams. And I was talking with James Henderson in Sunpack Sports Dude about it, and he's been fighting this fight for a while with a lot of people. The conversation comes up about drink, and it's like, well, you're top 30 offensively, you're top 10 passing, but there's more to it. I think it's the aggressive nature, and like I said, they just haven't dominated the games, and that's the part that I think leaves people with a bad feeling in their mouth. You're letting these teams stay in these games, when in reality you think you have much better talent than they do, and you should be crushing them. You shouldn't be close versus Wake Forest. That's, and maybe it is a philosophy thing where Doran wants to be a ball control running team, but you can still dominate teams running the football. And I don't think we've done that. I don't think the offense has done a good job fitting its plays or schemes to its strengths. I think that's where the frustration comes from. It's been an increasingly popular conversation lately because Drink is being recruited by Jeremy Pruitt to be the Tennessee Volunteers offensive coordinator. It's him and the Auburn offensive coordinator, both from the Gus Malzahn coaching tree. And it's split, man. It's the reaction from people is, let's get somebody else, or, we got to keep him. But there's no, I just don't think it's that clear. I get everybody's frustration about it. And then I started browsing Reddit, our college football, and something kind of stood out to me. I saw a comment from the West Virginia fans. West Virginia offensive coordinator is left to be the Texas State head coach, Jake Spavital. And I go in there expecting the West Virginia fans to be kind of upset about it and talking about the replacement when they're all instead celebrating. And one fan in particular said, well, 90% of the time his play calls are great. It's that 10% that was frustrating. That really got me thinking, like, are we all crazy? Like, are we all batshit crazy to the point where a guy who's been in charge of top 30 offenses for the last, I think it's 8 years, between his time at Texas A&M, Cal, and West Virginia, is getting, shown the door, so to speak, by the fans at West Virginia? Like, West Virginia's offense, like, I watched all year, like, man, these guys can play. Like, they score a lot. And the West Virginia fans aren't happy. Are we all crazy? Are we doing the same thing to drink? I kind of think about that sometimes. There's no doubt that the offense has been better under Drink than it was under Canada. So are we being too nitpicky? I shared an article today, and it talked about Clobber. It was talking about offenses, and the title was Clobber and Confuse. It was really about Satterfield and App State, but they really highlighted our offense and actually Matt Canada's offense. So it was 3 sections, and it talked about the different motions and how they trying to get the ball into the running back's hands in different ways. But the one thing I kind of picked up from it and the way they were breaking it down was we just didn't have the horses to run what they really want to run, I think, what Drink really wants to run, which was probably last year, which is 3 running backs, get them into space, let them do whatever they need to do, find creative ways to get on the ball. I think everybody should go back and read that. It's from last year. But you think about it, they only have Gillespie, who's a straight line runner, and Person, who's not really healthy. So maybe next year, if Drink sticks around, and we have James Griffin and Zonovan Knight and Ricky Person, like, now you really start to see some dynamic offense, some dynamic playmaking ability. And I think we saw a bit of that with Nyheim Hines and Jalen Samuels, but we still missed that third. When it was Hines, Samuels, and Days, I think you saw a little bit more of that, and I think that gave a lot of teams matchup problems. So, I don't know, man. Like, are all fans crazy? Like, I mean, I kind of think so. I kind of always thought so. But are we being too hard on Drink about it? I think there's been some real frustrating play calling at times, and I think that's kind of what everybody's kind of hangs their head on, and the fact that they haven't been dominant when you have this much talent. But it's just an interesting thing to think about, and kind of interesting to look at, from the outside, look at other fans during all this chaos. Or, like, I still couldn't believe the West Virginia fans were excited they lost their offensive coordinator. Mind-blowing. Other thing that's mind-blowing, and I just can't believe it, is that Jermaine Pratt didn't get any votes for Defensive Player of the Year. How the hell is that possible? Not only is he the best linebacker in the league, he's the top 3 in the country. And he didn't get a single vote? What a sham. What a sham that process is. If you're a voter, you should be absolutely ashamed of yourself. I don't understand not one bit how that guy doesn't get a single vote. That's... I don't know. I'm beating some drum if I'm in the athletics department. Like, this dude needs some attention, man. That's ridiculous. Really, really ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, Debbie Out responded to my tweets last week about alcohol and pass outs, and she wasn't too excited about it. I asked her to come on. She's kind of blew me off, and eventually came back around and said, well, maybe, when the seasons die down. But I don't think she cares. But I'd love to get a few minutes with her and talk to her about the ins and outs of it. And she said, yeah, well, her comment was, all right, we're working on it. My thing is, like, talk to us. How are you working on it? What can State fans do? Like, State wants to sell alcohol in the stadium. And she said it's a legislative problem. All right, who do we talk to? Communicate what's going on about the process. There's a hell of a lot of Wolfpack fans out there. I'm sure there's some with enough pull that can, start that conversation and, help to some degree, right? Push that conversation along. But there's been no communication about it. And I think that was the part that was frustrating with her response. Yeah, we're working on it. How are you working on it? Right? What's being done? I give them money. Let's talk about it. I think other people want to know about it too. I think that's, yeah. So, well, if I ever get a chance to talk to her, I'll try to ask some real questions as opposed to some of the other interviews you hear. They let her dance around it. I'm a little bit more blunt than most people. Tucker Blankenship. What does 9-3 mean in football in this soft ACC? I struggle with this a lot since UVA and BC tanked. Yeah. 9-3, in the end, it would be fantastic. They got to beat ECU. And to be 9-3, back-to-back years, I don't remember the last time it's ever happened. You won't remember the schedule. You won't remember how bad these teams were in the future. And maybe we're a bit of a fraudulent 9-3. I'm not opposed to saying that. Maybe we're not as good as 9-3. And maybe we are a benefit of, a down league. But hey, Wake Forest won in 2006. They won the ACC because the league was down. Nobody talks about the league being down. They just talk about Wake Forest has an ACC title. So I don't really give a crap. 9 wins, 10 wins if you win the bowl game. It elevates your program. It's something you can hang your hat on. And Dave Doran can really sell. Look, 9 wins last year, 10 wins this year. I mean, that's getting it done. That is really getting it done. I think all State fans should be happy with it, despite how emotional we might feel about some of the close games and what could have been. I'd love to play in a New Year's 6 game, but you got to be happy with 9-3. I don't think anybody would have turned that down if that was offered to you August 27th this past year. Talk a little bit of hoops before we get into some of the other stuff. Manny Privet, what is a charge in basketball? Yeah, and how will a loss in basketball? This is from Vishnu. How will the loss in basketball last night affect our game planning going forward? This was from the other night. We played Wisconsin Tuesday night and just got absolutely cheated out of a game. I don't think it'll affect in a negative way. I think it's actually one of those things they can probably take something from. I hate the fucking moral victory nonsense. But I really think they played hard. They didn't get a fair shot, and they still could have won that game. I mean, I think that says a lot about this team that nobody really knew what to expect. I'd like to see Markel maybe get the ball in his hands a little bit more at the end of the game, or Dorn get a chance to go to the rack. But, that's just splitting hairs. I mean, they're a young team playing on the road at Wisconsin with a team that just doesn't match up well for the style you want to play, and you still score 75 points. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. The flopping thing is just ridiculous. It's been beaten like a dead horse. I'm not going to get into it. I wasn't as happy like anybody else was. I feel like they got cheated. It's just not a fun way to play basketball. I mean, we play pickup every week, and nobody calls a charge. Like, get out of the way. Right? Stand there, knock them over, okay? Don't slide under a guy. It's frustrating. So I'm excited about basketball, man. I really like Keats. I really like what he's doing, and I think it's gonna be a fun year. I think you'll see more ups and downs like this, but they're gonna be in every game. They should be in every game. And I think you kind of saw that. So this week we play ECU in football for the 9th win we were just talking about. At home, it's been going back and forth. He's been fired, not fired. Scotty Montgomery, from ECU, but apparently he's been fired. Today he got fired. Although somebody just sent me that's from last week. Somebody just sent me a tweet. It was, "We're sticking behind Scotty Montgomery," which was 2 weeks old. Thanks. So Scotty Montgomery's gone, which is 3-8, 3-8, 3-8. Hard to deny. Like, why would you keep him? You shouldn't have hired him in the first place. It was a bad hire. But why the hell do you fire him on Thursday? And it just looks like the place is out of control. Like, there's no leadership there, and they don't have an AD. They're still trying to hire an AD. But apparently they're trying to get Mike Houston, who was going to Charlotte from JMU. I don't know, man. If I'm Mike Houston, I'm going to Charlotte over ECU. I think you're in a better talent pool. You have a much lower bar. And you have an easier road to win. And you have an easier road to take that next job. And I'm fine with them. I'm fine with him taking the Charlotte job. We'll stash him there until we're ready to take him. I don't know if he'll go to ECU or not, but it's... 2 of his assistants are ECU grads. 2 of his assistants at JMU are ECU grads. But his family's closer to Charlotte, and I think he mentioned that. What I will say, and I wish I had more time to edit these podcasts because I would include more audio clips and stuff, but he had an interview that I retweeted yesterday, and he basically said, yeah, they offered me a job, and I'm considering it. He was straightforward. He was honest. And it was none of this bullshit that other coaches give you where, like, no, I didn't talk to anybody. Then 2 days later, they turn around and take the job. I really liked how he handled it. I think more coaches should handle it that way. And I think that just kind of speaks to him as a person. And he looked at the responses from the JMU fans on that tweet, and they're like, good luck, coach. Thanks for everything. Very positive, not, hey, you're leaving us high and dry during the playoffs or whatever, which it could have been. But, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. He's a good coach, so whoever gets him is going to be lucky. I would just go to Charlotte rather than ECU. And I know I'm probably in the minority there because ECU is kind of the bigger program. But if the money's equal, I'm going to Charlotte. The other big news out of ECU is that Holton Ahlers, their quarterback, is probably not going to play. He's a guy that's state recruited hard. He's from Greenville. He got the starting job a couple weeks ago. He's a little bit more of a dual threat guy. But he got hurt. They were down 36 to Cincinnati in a game. It was just miserable. They just got the doors blown off of them. And he got hurt. And so they don't think he's going to play. I practiced all week. And I think that really hurts them. Reed Herring, the guy that started the year as a quarterback, he came in last week. 2 of 6 and 2 picks, I think, was his line. Not great. They're a really bad team. They're going to be playing a little like Louisville. Emotional, nothing to lose early on. But they're just not good. When it comes down to it, they're not good. And we should blow the doors off them. I'd love to see, even if Drink is really looking at Tennessee or some other jobs, I'd love for him to kind of use this as a audition and just drop the hammer on somebody and beat the crap out of them. Not make it close. This is what I want. I don't want it to be a close game to be concerned about. It's a 24-point spread. I think that kind of speaks to how bad they are. But again, It's the ECU team. We've lost them before. Doran's 0-2 versus ECU. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what state team you'll get? Who knows what ECU team you'll get? The other interesting news is Jeff Brom turned down Louisville. I mean, Louisville fans are on tilt right now. I equate it similar to Roy Williams turning down Carolina a way back, but the Louisville fans they don't feel the same way. They feel like they're really getting shit on, and they like want to close the door on the Jeff Brom chapter. And I think that's crazy, but there's plenty of coaches out there they can get. You know, Satterfield's the man on the list, the App State guy, and the Louisville fans are they're not having it, man. They want a big name. Like Lane Kiffin is a name they want. And I think they're worried about Satterfield's recruiting, but I don't care, man. I think Satterfield can coach, and they would be lucky to have him. But they don't feel that way, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And Paul Johnson randomly stepped down. He's retiring. He's 6 years younger than Mac Brown is when Mac Brown's coming back. So that's kind of strange. The other thing I was reading Reddit, like I said earlier, in the comments on the Georgia Tech on Paul Johnson stepping down were, again, not as I expected. I thought there'd be a little bit of an air of relief. But for the most part, they're like, he did a lot of good things here. And, despite the triple option, he was really successful. And for the most part, they won a state triple option. I think that's pretty interesting. So I'd be curious to see, like, they go Army and get Jeff Monken. That'd be a great hire for them if they want to stay triple option, or Willie Fritz to Lane. Or if they go after Satterfield, who's also been mentioned, or the Clemson offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott. He's been mentioned a lot for a lot of jobs too. So it'd be curious to see what happens, but I thought that was interesting. Just not the reaction I expected from Georgia Tech fans, and Georgia fans were actually happy too. Which he's beaten them enough times that they're happy he's done. I thought that was interesting. I think that's all the news. My notes are scattered, and it's been wild, man. I haven't been as productive as I should have been, man, on talking smack on Twitter and just watching the chaos go around us. But it's pretty interesting. Been a fun week. I love this part of the season, man. I think it's one of the best parts. Watching all the coaching changes and all the fans go crazy. And yeah, especially when we're not involved. So, Pac takes on ECU Saturday. They play Vanderbilt basketball on Saturday. So, should be a pretty big day. I think that's all I got. Hopefully, I don't have to do another emergency episode like I did last week. But, all right, I think that's all I got. I'm rambling at this point. Thanks for bearing with me and my sickness. And I will talk to you guys next week sometime. Maybe, probably. As always, go Pack. Thanks for listening.